After paying for her nursing school, my son's wife sent me a card that read, "Thanks for the handout. You're irrelevant now." I showed it to my son. He said, "She's right. Stay out of our lives." That was the last time I cried. The next time they called, it was me who said. I had Kyle when I was 21. His dad left before Kyle's 4th birthday. I raised him alone in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. It wasn't fancy, but we had what we needed. I worked cleaning offices at night, then picked up shifts at the diner during the day. I was tired all the time, but it was worth it. I didn't want Kyle to feel like he was missing anything. I gave up a lot. I didn't go out. I didn't date. I didn't buy new clothes. When our old heater broke one winter, I stayed up all night boiling pots of water just to keep the place warm. I didn't complain. I just wanted Kyle to be okay. And he was. He was smart, quiet, respectful. Always helped carry in the groceries, made me tea when I was sick, even brought home leftover cake from school events. He always thought of me. He got into the University of Tennessee at Knoxville on a partial scholarship. I cried that day, good tears. He wanted to be a teacher. I was proud. I helped where I could, sending him money when the scholarship didn't cover books or food. I stretched every dollar just to make sure he didn't feel alone. Then, 2nd year of college, he brought Melissa home for Thanksgiving. I remember her the moment she walked in. Loud laugh, fake lashes, gold jewelry, expensive boots. She looked around our place like it smelled funny. When I handed her a cup of sweet tea, she wrinkled her nose and said, "Oh, I don't drink sugar." I didn't know what to say, so I just smiled. Kyle was quiet that visit. He watched her a lot. Like he was trying to keep her calm. That should have been my first clue. A few months later, he called. He said Melissa failed a nursing course and needed to retake it. They didn't have the money. He sounded embarrassed. I didn't ask questions, I sent money. Thousands. Then another semester, another check. I co-signed a lease when they moved in together. When their old Honda broke down, I gave them $1,800 for a used car. I didn't keep track of how much I gave. I just kept giving. Then came their wedding. Small, rushed. I wasn't asked to help plan anything. I was told when and where to show up. No special seat. No speech. I brought a gift and wore my best dress. Melissa barely made eye contact with me. 3 months later, I got the card. It was a plain white envelope with one of those cheap, shiny cards from the pharmacy. The front said, "Thanks for everything." I opened it and saw her handwriting. "Thanks for the handout. You're irrelevant now," smiley face, that's it. No joke. No punchline. Just that. I waited a few days before I called Kyle. I told him about the card, thinking he'd be shocked. He wasn't. He said, flat out, "She's right. You need to stay out of our lives. We're building something new, and your drama isn't helping." I asked what I did wrong. He said, "You always act like we owe you something." I said, "I never asked for anything back." He said, "Exactly. But you always expect to be thanked like a hero." Then he hung up. I sat at the table for 3 hours. Didn't eat. Didn't move. I just held that card in my hand like it could explain everything. That night, I cried harder than I ever had before. Not loud sobs. Quiet ones. The kind that shake your whole body. The kind you feel in your bones. After that, I stopped calling. I stopped checking their Facebook. I stopped sending birthday gifts. I stopped trying. 2 full years went by. Nothing. No contact. No holiday calls. I didn't even know where they lived anymore. Then, out of nowhere, my phone rang one afternoon. It was Kyle. I almost didn't answer. He started with small talk. Like nothing happened. Then he got to the real reason. Melissa lost her job. I took a pay cut. We're struggling. We might lose the house. Could we come stay with you for a little while? Just to get back on our feet. I paused. My heart didn't race. I didn't feel panic or joy. Just calm. I said, you told me I was irrelevant. Why would you call someone who doesn't matter? He was quiet for a second. Then he said, Mom, don't do this. I said, you made your choice. He said, that was Melissa talking. I said, you agreed with her. He begged. I hung up. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't feel sad. I felt clear. Over the next few months, I started planning. Not out of hate. Not out of revenge. Just out of a need for peace. I went through my old drawers, found every record I had of what I gave them, bank transfers, receipts, text messages. I kept it all. Not for court. Just for myself. Then I reached out to someone I hadn't seen in over 20 years, Kyle's father, Dennis. He lived in Memphis, newly retired, and diabetic. We hadn't talked since Kyle was a teenager. He apologized. I didn't care. We talked for hours. Cried a little. Then I asked him for a favor. I asked him to become my medical power of attorney. He said yes. Why? Because I found out Melissa was trying to get back into nursing. She was applying for in-home care jobs. A friend of mine from church worked at a small agency in town. Melissa's name had just come through as a potential caregiver. I had Dennis call, posing as my proxy. He said we were looking for in-home help. Said we'd heard great things about Melissa and would pay well. Said it would be short-term. She showed up a week later. Clipboard in hand. Hair slicked back. Fake smile. When I came into the room, her face went pale. She said, "What is this?" I said, "You tell me. Are you still proud of that card you sent?" She tried to speak. I didn't let her. I showed her a folder of every dollar I'd spent helping her become a nurse. Then I pointed to the door. "I'll be letting every agency in this area know what kind of person you are." She tried to apologize. I walked away. I didn't stop there. I sent anonymous letters to every job listing I saw her name on. Attached a photo of the card. I even filed a complaint with the Tennessee Nursing Board. Turns out, she'd already been flagged once for a botched clinical report. My tip pushed them to suspend her license, pending investigation. A few weeks later, Kyle called again. He sounded angry. "You ruined her career." I said, "No. She did." He said, "You're evil." I said, "No. I'm just irrelevant. Remember?" And I hung up. After that last phone call, I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd finally stop calling. But people like Kyle and Melissa, they don't give up when they think they can squeeze something out of you. Especially when they realize their old tricks don't work anymore. A month passed with silence. Then, one Saturday morning, I was coming out of the grocery store with a bag of apples and some eggs when I saw Kyle's old car parked across the lot. It was beat up worse than I remembered, dented on the side, covered in dust like it hadn't been washed in months. Melissa was inside. She looked rough. Her hair was up in a messy bun, no makeup, eyes red. I walked right past without looking at her. She got out. Called my name. I kept walking. She followed me to my car. "Please," she said. "Can we talk?" I turned and looked at her. For the first time in years, she looked like a real person, not the fake version she always played. She was thin, pale, her voice shaky. I didn't feel pity. Just, nothing. "I made mistakes," she said. "I didn't mean for things to go this far." I was scared. "I pushed Kyle to cut you off because I didn't want him choosing you over me." I stared at her. Then I said, "You didn't want him choosing decency over control." She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. I got in my car and drove off. The next day, someone egged my front door. A week after that, my mailbox was torn off. I didn't have proof, but I knew it was them. Or someone they put up to it. That's when I changed gears. I filed a police report. Then I called a friend of mine who worked as a legal aid. I asked how to file a civil claim for unpaid personal loans. Turns out, I could. Every dollar I gave them? I had records. Technically, it could be considered a loan unless it was marked as a gift. And I never once used the word gift in writing. In fact, I had several texts from Kyle that said, "I'll pay you back when I can." So I filed. Small Claims Court. The paperwork was delivered to their new address. Melissa's mother's trailer in Florence, Alabama. 2 weeks later, I got a voicemail from Kyle. "Why are you doing this? We're already struggling. You really want to humiliate us in court? No apology. No ownership. Just guilt and anger." I didn't respond. The day of the hearing came. I brought all my documents in a neat binder. Kyle showed up alone. Melissa didn't come. He looked thinner too. Less sure of himself. Tired. He didn't deny taking the money. He didn't deny what he said. The judge listened. Looked at the printed texts. The bank transfers. The card. Then he said, "You owe her." Judgment was entered in my favor. They'd have to start paying in monthly installments, $200 a month for the next few years. It wasn't about the money. It was about the record. It was about standing in that room, facing my son, and not feeling small anymore. You'd think that would be the end. But I found out something else, right after that. Kyle had a son. A 3-year-old boy named James. My grandson. I didn't even know he existed. Not once had Kyle mentioned him. Not once had Melissa reached out. Nothing. 3 years. You know how I found out? From a photo posted online by Melissa's cousin. She tagged Kyle, and there he was, holding a little boy with dark curly hair and his eyes. My eyes. I stared at that photo for a long time. And that's when I knew, this wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about protecting that little boy from growing up around the kind of poison that had turned Kyle into a stranger. So I made one more move. I hired a family lawyer. Not to get custody, no judge would hand me that. But to open an inquiry. A welfare check. Just to ask questions. I had enough to raise concerns: unstable housing, no steady income, Melissa's suspended license, the acts of vandalism on my home. I didn't want James to end up like his father. I didn't want him to be taught to throw away the people who love you. Kyle didn't see this coming. When he found out about the inquiry, he sent me one message: "You're trying to steal my son. You're sick." I didn't answer. I just waited. Because this wasn't over. Not yet. About a week after the welfare check, I got a knock on my door around 7:30 at night. It was a woman, late 20s, nice clothes, clipboard in hand. She said she was from Child Protective Services, following up on a report that had been made. I invited her in. She asked routine questions: what I knew about James's living situation, when I last saw Kyle and Melissa, whether I had ever witnessed abuse or neglect. I was honest. I haven't seen James in person. I didn't even know he existed until a few weeks ago. But I know his parents. I know the way they treat people. I know they're unstable. I know they're angry. She took notes, nodded, then asked, "Would you be willing to meet James? If it came to that?" I said yes. It felt strange, saying that. Agreeing to meet a little boy I'd never seen. My own flesh and blood, hidden from me like some secret. A few days later, I got a call from the caseworker. She said Kyle had agreed to a supervised visit, just one, at a community center in Florence. I could meet James, talk to him, get to know him for the first time. I didn't sleep the night before. The room was small. Cold. Metal chairs, plastic toys in the corner, and a window where the caseworker sat behind glass. I sat there, knees bouncing, heart in my throat. Then they walked in. Kyle looked worn down. Melissa wasn't there. James was tiny. Brown eyes, soft curls, holding a toy truck like it was glued to his hand. He looked at me, unsure. Kyle knelt beside him and said, "That's Grandma. Say hi." James blinked, then whispered, "Hi." I felt everything all at once. Rage, love, grief, hope. I smiled and waved. For 30 minutes, we sat on the floor and played with blocks. He told me his favorite color was green. That he liked dinosaurs and grapes and hated naps. I told him I liked apples and puzzles and birds. He laughed when I made a silly face. He climbed into my lap like it was normal. When the visit ended, he turned and said, "Grandma, you can come play again?" I said, "I hope so." Then Kyle pulled him away and walked out without a word. That night, I cried again, but this time, it felt different. Like the door had opened, just a crack. But of course, it never stays open long with people like Kyle. 2 days later, I got served papers. Kyle was suing me for emotional distress and harassment. He claimed I had manipulated the system and tried to destroy his family. He wanted a no-contact order. He wanted to block me from seeing James ever again. I went numb. The court date was set for 6 weeks out. I hired the best lawyer I could afford. I gave her everything: emails, messages, the card, the vandalism reports, proof of the money I gave. I even got a letter from the CPS caseworker who had witnessed my visit with James. The letter said, "This child responded with joy and comfort to Ms. Dawson. In my opinion, this connection is emotionally valuable and not harmful." It became clear that this lawsuit wasn't about protecting James. It was about punishing me, for standing up. For saying no. But the twist wasn't the lawsuit. The twist came when Melissa's cousin, same one who posted that photo, messaged me on Facebook. She said she had something I should see. A video. Melissa, drunk at a party, yelling in someone's backyard. In the clip, she screamed, "I can't stand that kid sometimes." I swear to God, if Kyle's mom hadn't ruined everything, I'd have dumped them both already. I showed it to my lawyer. We subpoenaed Melissa's phone records. We found texts between her and another man. Photos. A full-blown affair. I didn't care about the cheating. I cared about what the texts said. Kyle's mom is dangerous. If she gets James, I'm done. I'm not going down for some brat that's not even mine. Not even hers? That line changed everything. I asked Kyle, quietly, calmly, if James was biologically his. He didn't answer. That's when I ran a private DNA test. I had enough hair from James's toy truck, left behind at the center. I paid extra for rush results. Kyle wasn't the father. Let that sink in. 3 years. 3 years he raised that boy. 3 years Melissa lied. And in all that time, she had me painted as the villain. I sat with the results in my hands, shaking. I didn't want to destroy Kyle. I didn't want to break James's heart. But I knew I couldn't stay quiet. This story wasn't done yet. Not by a long shot. I had the DNA results in my hand for 2 full days before I told anyone. I didn't sleep. Didn't eat much either. I just kept looking at the paper over and over again. Probability of paternity, 0%. I read it 100 times. I wasn't happy. I wasn't angry. I just felt this deep emptiness. Like everything in my life, every fight, every lie, every sleepless night worrying about Kyle, was built on a foundation that wasn't even real. I thought about James. That sweet little boy who didn't ask for any of this. And I thought about Melissa. About the way she looked down on me in my own home. About that card. About the smug little smiley face she drew next to "You're irrelevant now." No. Not anymore. I called my lawyer and gave her the results. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Are you ready for this? It's going to get messy." I said, "It's already messy. Now it's just going to be honest." We added the DNA results to the civil court file. It was now part of public record. Within 2 days, Kyle withdrew his lawsuit. He didn't call me. He didn't say a word. But Melissa did. She showed up at my house, banged on the front door like she owned it. I didn't answer. So she screamed. You crazy B***tch. You ruined everything. Then she spit on my porch and walked off. I called the police and reported it. She was arrested for trespassing and harassment. She spent a night in jail. It didn't end there. Because the video her cousin gave me? The one of Melissa yelling that she couldn't stand that kid? I sent that to Child Protective Services. Along with her texts. And her job history. And a new affidavit from her ex-boyfriend, the one she was texting behind Kyle's back, saying she'd threatened to abandon the child if things got bad. The agency opened a formal investigation into her. They took it seriously. They did house visits. Interviews. Drug tests. The works. Turns out, Melissa had been popping pills. Not prescribed. Not legal. And she failed her test. James was removed from their care within the week. But here's where it turns. They didn't give him to me. CPS placed James with a foster family in Florence, pending a full family placement review. I was shocked. I cried. I called the caseworker and asked why. She said, there's still too much chaos surrounding the case. The child needs stability. I begged. I said I had a stable job. A home. A clean record. She said they'd review everything in 60 days. I had 60 days to prove I deserved to raise a child who wasn't even my blood. So I did what I had to. I got certified. I passed every background check. I took parenting classes. I met with family specialists. I went to therapy and got letters from my pastor, from my doctor, from my neighbors. I did everything. Meanwhile, Kyle spiraled. He left Melissa. Moved into a motel. Lost his job. I got a call from him one night. He was crying. Drunk. He said, I should have listened to you. I lost everything. I'm not even his dad. I said, you still could be. He said, what do you mean? I said, you were the only father James ever knew. But you chose Melissa. You chose lies. He sobbed. He said, can I see you? I said, not yet. A few weeks later, CPS called. They said the board had reviewed my file and approved me as a kinship guardian. James was coming to stay with me. The day he arrived, he ran into my arms and said, Grandma. I'm home. I held him so tight I thought my heart would burst. We made pancakes that night. Watched cartoons. Fell asleep on the couch together. And I knew right then, I wasn't irrelevant. I was exactly where I needed to be. As for Kyle? He showed up 2 months later. Clean. Sober. Thin. Eyes tired. He said, can I talk to him? I looked at James, who was building a puzzle on the floor. Then I said, you can sit. You can watch. But he's not ready. Not yet. Kyle nodded. He sat down on the edge of the couch and just watched his son in silence. I made tea. I didn't say a word. Melissa? She pled guilty to child endangerment and possession of controlled substances. Got 2 years probation. Lost her nursing license permanently. Her name's still on the public database. She tried to contact Kyle again. He didn't answer. Her cousin told me she moved out of state. Last anyone heard, she was working as a waitress in Georgia, living with a man twice her age. She never once tried to reach out to James. Good. Because I'm his mother now. Kyle still visits. He's working again. He's trying. He'll never be the boy I raised, not completely. But he's growing. And that's something. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I never showed him that card. If I had just stayed quiet and let Melissa win. But I didn't. I kept every receipt. Every memory. Every piece of myself that they tried to throw away. I took it all. And I used it. Because the truth? Revenge doesn't have to be loud. Sometimes it's quiet. It's a child sleeping safe in your house while the people who betrayed you lose everything they thought they deserved. That's what justice looks like. That's what love looks like. And this time I'm not crying. I'm smiling.